At 58, Yvonne Settles had never once had more than a few $100s to her name, and every soul in her family knew it. At the Sunday table, when the talk turned to money, her eyes went to her plate. Her younger sister Vernelle had retired from nursing with a pension and a paid-off house, and Vernelle meant no harm. She truly didn't. But she had a way of patting Yvonne's hand and saying, "Some of us are savers and some of us are just survivors, baby, and there's no shame in it." Everybody would nod, gentle, like they were agreeing about the weather. And Yvonne would smile and pass the greens and say nothing. What not one of them knew that particular Sunday was that the sister with nothing was the only woman at that table who wasn't afraid to open her own bank statement. If you have spent your whole life being called the one who never had a head for money, the survivor, not the saver, while folks who made 3 times what you made looked down from up high, stay right here. Because by the end of this, you are going to see the arithmetic that the smart ones never learned, and the woman who earned the least is going to have the last quiet word. Yvonne worked the counter at a laundromat in Church Hill on the east side of Richmond and had for going on 20 years. Bright hot room full of the smell of dryer sheets and bleach, the tumble and thump of a dozen machines, the little bell over the door. She made change. She sold single-load boxes of soap. She mopped up spills, and on the side she did fluff and fold for folks too busy or too tired to wait. $10 a bag, folded better than their own mamas could. Her feet hurt by noon and worse by night. She brought home a little over $300 a week, and after the rent and the lights and her share of what the family always seemed to need, there was never much standing between Yvonne and the first of the month. On a shelf in her bedroom, up where the sun caught it in the afternoon, sat a little brass bank shaped like a beehive. She'd bought it at a 5 and dime downtown when she was 19, brand new in the world and full of plans, because the man said you drop your coins in the top and one day you twist the bottom and there's your little fortune. Yvonne had loved that. A hive. Something built one small piece at a time by somebody nobody ever noticed. For 39 years, it sat up there shiny and light as air, holding 2 buttons and a safety pin, because a bank needs money, and money was the one thing Yvonne never had first. She used to shake it sometimes, on a hard night, just to hear the buttons and the pin slide around inside, and she'd tell herself the man at the 5 and dime had sold a 19-year-old girl a pretty lie, a hive, as if a woman like her would ever have coins to spare for the top of it. The laundromat only ever taught her the opposite of hope on that count. All day long, money moved through her hands, quarters by the roll, singles by the fold, and every last coin belonged to somebody else the second before and the second after it touched her palm. She was a bridge that money crossed, and a bridge never once gets to keep the traffic. If you're new to this channel, know that it was built for women who work with their hands and their whole hearts and still get called survivors instead of savers. Women like Yvonne, women like you, go on and subscribe and stay close. These stories belong to us. The thing about Vernelle was that she wasn't wrong on paper, and that was what made it sting. Vernelle had gone to nursing school. Vernelle had made good money for 30 years at the hospital on the hill. Real money, nurse money, and everybody in the family had watched the two sisters and drawn the natural conclusion: the one who earns will have, the one who scrapes will scrape. Yvonne had believed it herself, all the way down, the way you believe a thing your whole family agrees on. Folks like me don't get to keep money, she'd have told you. We keep everybody else, and we make do. It never once occurred to her, in 58 years, that keeping money and making money might be two different skills entirely, and that she had been quietly judged her whole life on the wrong one. It went all the way back to when they were girls on Q Street. Vernell, the one with the report cards taped to the icebox. Yvonne, the one who could stretch a Sunday chicken clear to Thursday. Their mother, worn down to the bone and doing her best, had looked at her two daughters one evening and said it plain, offhand, the way you say a thing that then turns true just because you said it out loud. Vernell was going to go far, and Yvonne was always going to land on her feet. Go far. Land on her feet. Two little sentences that quietly decided the next 40 years. Vernell rode the far one all the way to nursing school, and Yvonne stayed home and landed on her feet over and over, holding the whole family up by the elbows, and not one soul, not even Yvonne herself, ever once stopped to ask whether the girl who could stretch a chicken to Thursday might just be the one who actually knew how to keep a thing. That winter, the sting turned into something worse. Yvonne's grandson needed his own place after some trouble at home, and Yvonne did what Yvonne always did. She said, "Come on," and she stretched $300 a week over one more mouth without a word of complaint. But she sat at her little kitchen table that January, with the bills and the Beehive Bank up on the shelf, watching her, and she did the math, and the math said what it had always said. There was no version of her life with anything left in it. She was 58, on her feet all day, loved by everybody, and one broken water heater away from zero. And the worst part, the part that kept her up at night, was that she had started to believe Vernell was simply right. She looked up at the little brass hive on the shelf that night, catching the last of the street light through the thin curtain. And for the first time in 39 years, she thought about taking it down and putting it in the trash. Because some nights, a hopeful thing you never once got to use is worse than no hope at all. She didn't throw it away. She was too tired to climb up for it, and that was the only reason, and she knew it, and somehow that shamed her more than anything. What Yvonne didn't know was that a Tuesday morning at her own counter was about to prove Vernell wrong for the rest of both their lives. Miss Estelle came in every Tuesday with her cart, 81 years old, sharp as a tack under her church hat, and she'd been coming to that laundromat since before Yvonne worked there. She was counting quarters out of a snap purse into her palm, unbothered, taking her time. Yvonne, making change at the counter, said something low and tired. That money ran through her hands all day long, and none of it was ever hers. That she handled more dollars in a week than she'd ever get to keep. Miss Estelle didn't look up from her quarters. A penny off every dollar that passes your hand, baby. Just the one. That's the only one that ever stays. Then she asked for her usual 2 boxes of the blue soap. She had no notion she'd just set something down on that counter, that Yvonne would carry home heavier than her whole cart of wash. 60 years I watched this neighborhood, Miss Estelle added, folding a shirt that wasn't hers to fold, just to be doing something. The ones who ended up with the little something weren't the big earners. They were the ones who took their penny off the top of every single dollar and never felt too proud to bend for it. Then she gathered her cart and her soap and went, the bell ringing behind her. Yvonne stood at the counter a good while after she'd gone, a roll of quarters cool in her hand, and thought about all the church hats she'd watched come through that door over 20 years. All those old women who never made much of anything and yet always seemed to have a little something for the collection plate and the grandbabies and their own selves. She'd always figured they'd gotten lucky somewhere or gotten help from somebody. It had never one time landed on her that they had all been doing the very same quiet thing, right there in front of her, for years. Yvonne rode the bus home with those words sitting in her lap like a parcel she hadn't agreed to carry. A penny off every dollar. It sounded like a child's game. It sounded like nothing at all. That night, she reached up to dust the shelf, the way she did on Tuesdays, and her hand stopped on its own on the little brass hive, cool and empty under her fingers. She didn't take it down. She just turned it a quarter turn so it faced out into the room and stood there a minute in the last of the afternoon light. The beehive bank was on the kitchen windowsill the next morning, down off the bedroom shelf, and Yvonne could not remember carrying it in there. There was a single penny sitting on the sill beside it. She stood in her housecoat with her coffee going cold and could not for the life of her recall setting either one down. For a while she did what 58 years had trained her to do, which was nothing. She let the pennies stay pennies. Payday came, and the money went the way it always went, out through the same familiar hands. And Miss Estelle's voice drifted somewhere far off, like a hymn from a church 2 blocks over. And Yvonne told herself, the way she always had, that when things settled down, she'd start putting something by. Things had never once settled down in 58 years, but she believed they would, because believing that was easier than the other thing. The first crack came at the counter, of all places. A young mother named Nia came in with a screaming baby and a mountain of wash, counting out her quarters twice because she'd come up short, and Yvonne watched her put back a box of the good soap and take the cheap one, and heard the girl mutter, "No point saving when you make what I make." And it went through Yvonne like a cold draft, because that was her own sentence, word for word, the family gospel, coming out of a 26-year-old at her counter. She'd said it herself that very week. She handed Nia the good soap anyway, on the house, and stood there after the girl left, feeling something she couldn't yet name. So she tried it, finally, the small, foolish thing. That Friday, before she cashed her check, before a single bill got looked at, she took the pennies off the top. A penny on every dollar of 300 and change, $3 in some. And she dropped them in the brass hive one at a time, and heard them land on the bottom for the first time in 39 years. $3. It was almost funny. She did fluff and fold that week, 4 bags, $40, and instead of letting it melt into the grocery run, she twisted it up and put the whole of it in the hive too, before the weekend could smell it. Then she went and paid her life, careful as ever. And here is the thing that stopped her cold. Nothing fell apart. The light stayed on. The boy ate. The world took what was left and never once noticed it was a hair short. She kept at it, quiet, not telling Vernell, not telling anybody. And a strange thing started happening to the rest of the money. The way it does when a woman finally stands at the front of her own line. The little leaks dried up. The late fees quit. The dollars she used to hand over at the register without thinking started to feel like they had somewhere better to be. Every dollar that passed her hand at that counter, every tip, every bit of change from her own pocket gave up its penny, and every fluff and fold bag went in whole. The hive got heavy. She had to twist the bottom open and empty it into a coffee can. And then the coffee can got heavy too. The first time that can felt heavy in her two hands, she sat right down on the edge of the bed and she cried. Not the sad kind, the other kind. The kind that scares you a little because you don't recognize it on your own face. $200 and some, kept on purpose first. She had handled 20 times that in a single week at the counter and never once held a dime of it as her own. And she caught herself doing a thing she had never done in 58 years of living, looking forward to Friday, not for what it would let her pay, but for the 1 penny it would let her keep. Then came the fear right behind it, quiet and mean, the old family voice whispering that she didn't deserve it, that Vernell would laugh if she knew, that women like her didn't get to have things put away. She let it whisper. She kept feeding the can anyway, but the middle of it nearly broke her, the way the middle always does. That spring, her grandson moved on and left 2 months of somebody's unpaid something behind him. And the old Yvonne rose right up, the one who believed the hive was a child's game and Vernell was right. And one night, she sat down on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinets and the coffee can in her lap, and thought hard about taking all of it back out and just being what everybody had always said she was, the survivor, the one who kept everybody but herself. She sat there a long time in the dark. Then she thought about Nia at the counter and the family gospel coming out of that young mouth, and she thought, not with drama, just plain and tired and sure. No, not this time. She put the lid back on the can and set it up on the shelf where the hive used to be, and she went to bed. There is a kind of courage nobody ever films. Starting over with money at 50, at 60, when the whole world and half your own family have already decided it is far too late for the likes of you. It is never too late to become the first person your own dollar answers to. And Miss Estelle's voice came back to her whole, clear as the bell over the laundromat door. A penny off every dollar that passes your hand, baby. That's the only one that ever stays. Yvonne understood it all the way down now. She had handled a river of other people's dollars for 20 years and kept not one. Not because she earned too little, because she had never once bent down for her own penny first, before the river carried it off. The rich didn't save what was left. Nobody had anything left. The rich and the wise and the old women in church hats, they took the first penny off the top and let the rest of the world fight over what came after. 2 years after that Tuesday at the counter, Yvonne sat at her kitchen table and did a different kind of math. And this time, she did it twice too, the way she used to do the sad math. Except this time, the number went the other way. The fluff and fold, $10 a bag, 4 and 5 bags a week, straight into the can, never once touched, came to about $200 a month. That alone, over 2 years, was near $5,000. The penny on the dollar of everything else she touched, her wages, her change, the little here and there, came to better than $2,000 more. And the money that used to bleed out in late fees and small, unnoticed foolishness, once she started guarding it, quit bleeding. She counted it all out on the oilcloth, stacked and banded, and the number sat there and would not move. $7,200. Hers, on the smallest paycheck in the whole family, kept, on purpose, first. And here is where the arithmetic turns, the part the smart ones never learned. That same spring, Vernell, the nurse, the saver, the one with the pension and the paid-off house, sat at Yvonne's table with her coffee and admitted, quiet, not looking up, that she was tighter than anybody knew. 30 years of good money, and it had come in the front door and gone straight out the back. The newer car, the nicer everything. Always saving whatever was left at the end. And at the end, there was never anything left, because there is never anything left. She had made 3 times what Yvonne made, and kept almost none of it. Yvonne did not gloat. She was not built for it. She just got up and took the coffee can down off the shelf and set it on the table between them and let her little sister lift the lid. Vernell looked in that can a long moment, and then she looked up at her big sister, the survivor, the one who was always going to land on her feet, and something moved across her face that the two of them had never once put into words in 50 years. "Show me," Vernell said finally, and her voice came out small in a way Yvonne had never heard from the girl with the report cards taped to the icebox. So Yvonne told her about the penny off every dollar, about the bag money that never gets to say hello to the weekend, about Miss Estelle in her church hat, counting quarters like she had all the time in the world. 2 grown sisters at a kitchen table, gray now, both of them, and for the first time in their whole lives, the lesson was running the other direction. That is the whole secret, and it fits in one breath. It was never how much came in. It was which penny you kept, and when. And the story could end right there. It doesn't, because Yvonne wasn't raised to let it. The next Tuesday, Nia came in again, tired, short on quarters again, and started to put back the good soap again. Yvonne came out from behind the counter, and she didn't give a speech because Miss Estelle never gave her one. She reached in her apron, found a penny, and pressed it into the young woman's palm and closed her fingers over it. "That one right there is the only kind that stays," she said. "One off every dollar that passes your hand before anybody. Not because it's a lot, because it's yours, and it's first." She looked at Nia and saw her own self at that counter not 2 years back, saw the family gospel in the girl's tired eyes, the same lie she'd swallowed for 58 years, and it took the wind clean out of her. She sent Nia home that day with the good soap and a little brass bank shaped like a beehive, the very one off her own shelf, and she showed her how you drop the first penny in the top so you can hear it land. Nia held that little hive against her chest on the way out the door, careful, like it might up and fly off. And Yvonne watched her go and knew, sure as Sunday, that the girl would feed it. Because a thing you can shake and hear is a thing a woman will keep. A penny off every dollar that passes your hand, baby. That's the only one that ever stays. The coffee can lives on Yvonne's kitchen table now, right where she eats. So it's the first thing her hand finds every morning before the day starts asking her for things. The little hive found a new home on Nia's shelf, finally holding what it was built for. It was never made to sit pretty and empty, catching the afternoon sun. It was made to be filled one small first penny at a time by a woman nobody ever thought to watch. If this story reached something in you, write it in the comments, all capitals, just like this. My first penny. My way. I read every single one of them, and I mean that. And send it to a sister or a friend who earns the least and gives the most, because she is the one who needs to hear that the arithmetic was rigged against her and how to unrig it. And if you made it all the way to the end with me, this channel is yours too. Subscribe, tap the bell, and stay close. Every week there's another woman who turned it around the slow, quiet, honest way, the way that actually lasts. If you want to take your own first step tonight, there's a free app that will help you keep that first penny where the world can't reach it, the way the beehive finally did for Yvonne. The link is waiting down in the comments. Take gentle care of yourself, you hear me? And remember this, if you remember nothing else, they told you that you couldn't save because you didn't earn enough. They had it backwards the whole time. You saved the first penny, and you let the world fight over the rest. And if this one sat with you, don't go just yet. Right next door, there's another story about a woman who finally saved her first $1,000 at 55 on the smallest wage after a whole lifetime of believing that saving was for other people. It's worth every minute.